On today's show, you know it, we back, boy. I am back. We're talking about the Dallas Mavericks introducing Tim Hardaway Jr., reintroducing Reggie Bullock, Sterling Brown, Moses Brown, some great stuff from them, some news as well. A trade was made in the NBA. We got a lot of stuff to talk about in today's Locked On Mavs.
Are you waiting on me?
Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Hey, Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and coordinator for the Locked On Podcast Network. And joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, and insider at Mavs.com, the We Back boy, the one more thinking. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Well, welcome back.
Feels good. Feels
I've never
good.
missed you so much.
I got one shade tanner on my vacation. I went from pale flesh color to just normal flesh color. If you guys are watching on YouTube.
Well, you had a very extravagant vacation spot. Do you
I went to rural Ohio.
White Lotus like location, or where did you go?
I went to rural Ohio to hang out with my family, and it was
5-star resort.
It was great. Yeah. Today's episode is brought to you by RockAuto.com. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit RockAuto.com and tell them that Locked On sent you. So much stuff to get into on this Monday. Basically, you know how they talk about Friday news dumps? That means we have a Monday, roundup of news that just happens. So we have a bunch of stuff to get to. The presser was obviously over the weekend. We'll get into a bunch of stuff from that. We will go ahead and play a bunch of clips from Tim Hardaway Jr., Reggie Bullock, introduce you to Sterling Brown, all that kind of stuff. Some funny stuff from Nico and Jason Kidd as well. We'll get into all that stuff from the presser. And the Mavs are 52 days away from opening night, Isaac Harris, on Monday.
That's insane. I mean, we were just briefly before this pod going over the schedule for our pod coming up over the next 4 weeks, and because that's how long we have until media day. It's like media day is going to be here before we know it, and who's going to be on the Mavericks by media day, we don't know.
We're not sure, but media day will even be before the October 1st date, probably, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so into September sometime, and before we know it, we're going to be back rolling again.
Absolutely. Nate Hinton was released over the weekend. We have a pour one out for Nate Hinton, the consummate bench celebrator and just hype man overall. Sad to see Nate Hinton go, but after his play in Summer League, I'm not sure anybody's surprised, to be honest.
Thank you for everything, Nate Hinton. Now, the Mavs Twitter account tweeted out, "Thank you for everything" to Nate Hinton, and yeah, Nate's a lot of fun, and he's super energetic. You know, we had Mike Shed on last week. Go listen to that pod if you haven't.
It's a great one.
And he, was asking about who's the funniest people on the team besides Boban. He said Maxey, but he also said Nate Hinton. And everybody loved Nate Hinton. So it just, we'll see where they go from here. I don't know what that means as far as that second two-way spot. There's an open roster spot right now. So
yeah, and there's an open roster spot. Eugene Omarui is the one two-way spot. We don't know who the other one is going to. As soon as Nate Hinton got released, 20 minutes later, my friend Josh texted me, "Who's the second two-way spot going?" I don't know. Maybe it's Ferran Hunt. Maybe it's I can't imagine that Onu is going to take that. He didn't look ready at all during Summer League, but we'll see. They may be bringing in something. This may be a play where they're making a player trade or whatever, and had to make a spot for it. It's interesting, the timing of all of it.
Well, it's a camp. There's a camp spot open now too. I mean,
right.
Before this, they had their full 20. Now they have 19 players. So whatever that contract looks like for that 20th player, they can now bring another person to camp.
Yep. Speaking of a trade that I mentioned earlier, Lauri Markkanen was traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers. An interesting deal. I think we'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow, but the Dallas Mavericks did not pull the trade off for Lauri Markkanen. Quick thoughts about the Lauri Markkanen trade. The Cavs gave up Larry Nance Jr., which is the way that I was listening to Locked On Cavs guys talk about Larry Nance Jr. It's like if Dwight Powell was also had the play level of Tim Hardaway Jr. Like, he's just such a great guy, like embodied the city and all that, but also was like one of their most important players on the team. And they traded that away for Lauri Markkanen. And it was a really interesting move. And they paid him a whole lot of money, like $16 million a year, to go play backup, like backup to Evan Mobley, and maybe never play with Evan Mobley. They also paid Jared Allen a whole bunch of money. It's just interesting, that move. But the money he got from the Cavs, he wasn't going to get from the Mavs.
Yeah, I think, we were at the Mavs presser on Friday with all the new players, coming to town that we'll talk about for the rest of the pod. But, right before Nico and everyone walked down the stairs, this trade comes out and you lean over and show me your phone. You're like, oh, marketing to Cleveland. I'm like, what the heck? And then bam.
Almost literally right when we got the Woj bomb, or the Shams tweet or whatever, that this trade was going down, Nico and them start walking down the stairs to come into the. It was almost as if they timed it to where, oh, that trade, we didn't get in on it. Let's go down to our presser. Like, it almost was right on the dot.
Yeah, so I think, we're going to talk more about it just from a Mavs perspective and all the angles on that probably tomorrow. But I think my main takeaway from it was Markkanen still got his money. Like, everybody got what they wanted, basically. Like, Chicago still got their first market, for Markkanen. Markkanen still got his money, $16 million a year, which is a lot, which is way more than what Dallas could offer. And, we were on this podcast talking about, man, is he going to do like a sign and trade into the TPE for Dallas? And it'd be around like 3 for 30, something like that, $10 or $11 million a year. Yeah, scratch that. Dude's getting $16 million a year. Who cares about fit for Markkanen if you're going to get $67 million? So I'm sure that's where his mind was at. So yeah, I was kind of surprised by all angles.
For the Cavs thing, like, they're just betting on the talent, right? Like, you might as well bring in a guy like that. They're getting younger and younger every single year, it seems like. Might as well bet on a guy. Who else are you giving that money to? It's not like they're trying to save for something else. I was even confused
who else wants to go there.
Yeah, Chris and Evan on Locked On Cavs were like, well, why pay him so much money? I'm like, who else is gonna go there? You gotta bet on some talent. If you had signed him straight up in free agency, maybe you're more excited about it than if they had traded. But that's how you have to get some of those guys if you're in a market like that.
I would like to see the list of players outside of LeBron coming back to Cleveland.
Boobie Gibson.
Who's the biggest signings for Cleveland? Like, this
Sasha Pavlovich.
One of the funniest things, though, Markkanen did an interview with I want to say KC Johnson, right? It covers the Bulls.
Casey Smith?
No. It covers the Bulls in Chicago for, I think, NBC.
Sam Smith, right?
No. And so anyway, he did this interview and he quote in that story said he's looking forward to learning from Kevin Love and what he can learn from him as a veteran and everything. I'm like, well,
he maybe could learn rebounding from Kevin Love. I'm actually
I'm pro
that.
No. I took it from the angle of like, are we sure Kevin Love's going to be on this team next year?
Well, he's not getting a buyout, so apparently that's not going to be a thing.
Yeah, I feel like the Kevin Love buyout Mavs lasted about 6 hours on Mavs Twitter, and I'm like, I'm not even going to entertain this, guys.
It's like his agent went to Woj or whoever published that story, just said, we just need this talk to stop on social media. Can we just publish this right now?
Yes.
I'll go on the record.
I just love all of the Shams and Woj tweets now, which isn't just this year's. Now is blank is happening from Jeff Schwartz at XL Sports. We got to put
literally from the name of the agent, and then the ones that are like, he was a big part of this, blah blah blah, and you're like, okay, yeah, sure.
We should start putting our agent name when we
could put the intern's name on. Tell them who the intern is.
Hey, put that on the notes, intern.
So obviously the biggest takeaway I think from the presser was, I don't know if there was one, but there's little things here and there that the biggest takeaway was like, we didn't learn anything new. I think, honestly, that was my biggest takeaway. But
Moses Brown is tall,
but we were introduced to Reggie Bullock. We learned
actually we did learn something new. We learned that we have a new friend of the pod.
Oh, we did learn that. We'll talk about
coming up next. We'll tell you
we will.
The individual who came up to us at the presser and told us how much they're enjoying our pod and how they've listened to it for a bit and kind of took us off guard. I don't know.
Off guard, avant garde. We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Sweatblock. Sweatblock, okay, this literally works because I tried it when I was gone. You take it and it's doctor created, doctor recommended. It's these wipes. And the night before, when your pits are dry, you wipe your pits with the sweat block. Isaac's got it right there with the pad, and they smell really strong. You can tell like you're working with something different.
You wiped your pits with the pad?
I wiped my pits with the pad, the wipe, whatever you want to call it.
Sweat block
it's all of the above. And you don't sweat, and you don't have to deal with pit stains, and you don't have to deal with changing your clothes or changing your shirt because you have pit stains and they're embarrassing. You don't have to deal with that for 7 days. It's incredible. I'm not sure they recommend this, but I also wiped some on my lower back because,
I was like, where are you going with this?
No, they have man parts for all that stuff. That's another product that they have. You have the wipes, and I wiped it on my lower back as well. And the whole time on the plane, there and back, I didn't have any problem with sweating on my lower back, which I know if you're a bigger guy and you live in Texas and you go to 100-degree weather and it's just muggy all the time, you know that you're dealing with that. So go ahead, get some Sweat Block. Go to sweatblock.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. Get 20% off today at sweatblock.com. Also want to tell you about Indeed. Indeed is the place to hire people. If you are looking to see, man, there's so many people out there. I have these jobs. I need to find the right person for it. Indeed is the right place for it. When hiring gets hard, you need Indeed, the job site that makes hiring incredibly simple. Just attract, interview, and hire. In fact, Indeed, you can do all of that hiring in one place. Even the interviewing process you can do on Indeed. So go check it out right now. Get started with a $75 sponsored job credit. The sponsored ones are when I was looking for a job and I was down on my luck. Those were the ones that came up first. You look for who's looking for a podcast producer, and it's like the first ones that come up are those sponsored jobs. Those are the ones that people see first. The people that are like me, who was, good worker, was ready to go and ready for an opportunity and needed to see the best opportunity first. You can put yours at the top right there. Go to indeed.com/locked. Get a $75 job credit at indeed.com/locked. Offer valid through September 30th. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Isaac Harris, let's get into the presser. So the Dallas Mavericks with Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd introduced, Tim Hardaway Jr. after his re-signing. They introduced Reggie Bullock, Sterling Brown, and Moses Brown as well to us and to the media. We got to ask questions and all kinds of stuff. We have tons of clips to play to you, but let's make good on our teas. Who was the person that told us that they love listening to Locked On Mavs? Because it's not just loyal listener Mark Cuban anymore.
It's not. And Scent Marshall came up to us and told us, which we love Scent. I love Scent. And I didn't know she listened to our pod. I know different people in the organization who listen to our pod, but did not know Scent Marshall did. So Scent, if you're listening to this, thank you for listening to the pod. Thank you for the support. And you're awesome.
Absolutely. It was great to hear from Scent Marshall. And it's just crazy. We'll pull back the curtain a little bit. It's crazy. We started this show and we were just nobodies. We walked into the building and we were just guys that had a press pass and we could write and we could talk. And we were like, all right, let's go in and start covering this team. And now it's built to this. And thank you everybody for being a part of it. All right. One of the funniest parts of the presser today was this quote from Nico Harrison when asked a question about shooting. It seemed like the Mavericks added, they made it a point to add shooting in Reggie Bullock and in Sterling Brown. That was something that in both the new guys they signed, they wanted to add shooting. And so this was a question asked of both Nico or Jason, and this was a funny way that they answered it, I thought.
Between Tim coming back and adding Reggie and Sterling, common denominator in the game is shooting. How key is that skill to the offensive identity you want to build around Luka in this offense?
You want to go first?
Am I running the offense?
You're the boss. You're the boss.
Okay, so you heard on there. Was this a point in adding to the offense? And Jason Kidd looked over at Nico Harrison all the way down the line and said, "You want to take this one?" And Nico Harrison looked all the way back down the line and said, "Am I running the offense?" That was pretty funny. But the part of that clip that matters, Isaac, is that Jason Kidd came back and said, "You're the boss." And then made it a point
twice.
To say it again. You're the boss. Why did Jason Kidd feel like he needed to make that distinction?
I mean, we read into it like, oh, he's just making a point to emphasize that, hey, Nico is the boss, because we know we're not dumb. He had a I don't even know, situation in Brooklyn, where it's where he got, he tried.
I wasn't even thinking about that, but yeah,
he tried to gain power in Brooklyn and kind of move around some people and go above some people in Brooklyn. It really rubbed some people the wrong way. And so I think this is a sign that, hey, Nico is the boss here. I also thought it was funny when Mike asked the question, Mike of now D Magazine, doing great work, D Magazine, moving over from The Athletic. And when he asked the question, I was like, I wonder how Moses feels right now. He's like, yeah, emphasizing shooting this offseason, bringing Tim back and adding on Sterling and Reggie. And it's like, Moses is like, well, dang it. I got to watch more KP tape now.
But I think to that point about Jason Kidd, and yes, we're the kings of reading way too much into these pressers and trying to decipher all these little words and things like that. Of course, we're going to take things out of proportion. But when you talk about the Mavs every day, that's kind of what you do. So, yep. But Jason Kidd did make it a point to say, you're the boss. You're the boss, because I wasn't even thinking about Jason Kidd's prior experience. I was thinking about their introductory press conference when the whole thing was about, is Mark Cuban going to allow Nico Harrison to be the actual, to be the boss, to be the guy that actually makes decisions? And Jason Kidd made it a point to say he's the boss. He's the one making the decisions. I thought that was interesting, that's definitely something that is either maybe sensitive or just something that they're aware of, that Jason Kidd wants to make a point. Because I think Jason Kidd is, from now just covering him for even a couple months now, is somebody that when he has something that he feels like he needs to say, he makes a point to say it, and he kind of puts it away in the back of his head. And then when the opportunity arises, he'll jump on the opportunity to say something like that and make it a point, whether it's talking about, as a young kid, I want to make it, make sure that kids around the world know that your dreams can happen. Like, he made it a point to say things like that. He made it a point to talk about leadership and growing and things like that. And this is another one of those, I think, that he learned. So we're getting to see a little bit about Jason Kidd and who he is, and about what the power structure is for the Mavericks. I thought that was interesting. Now that we've read way too much into that, let's move on to the next one. So this was a question asked about how the Mavericks are going to play. And this is a question, to Jason Kidd. It's a question we've had a lot. How are the Mavs going to look differently? How are they going to use centers? How are they going to use Kristaps Porzingis? A big question coming up. So we'll ask this. We'll hear this question from to Jason Kidd.
How is this team going to look and function differently? Like, how will the fans see this team any different than previous seasons?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change in the sense we're not going to take the ball out of Luka's hand. He's too good. You see we've added pieces to complement him, but also complement each other. But the biggest thing is the defensive side of the ball. We got to pay a little bit more attention to detail. Understand we all have one goal, and that's to win a championship, and we got to get stops. And so the last time we won a championship here, we did get stops, and that wasn't just our offense that won us a championship, but it was our defense. And so just talking about defense, being together. I think one of our leaders said it this summer. We got to work on our chemistry. Our chemistry has to improve. We are a family. There's going to be disagreements, but we move forward and we help one another. And I think that's the biggest thing you're going to see. The fans will see is that this team is together.
At first, that quote, you laugh because you're like, oh, yeah, of course they're not going to take the ball out of Luka's hands. Of course it's not going to change. But I thought the defensive aspect and then later the chemistry aspect I thought was a really big deal.
Yeah, we were joking earlier, but, some people really don't like the 2011 tiebacks of everything. It's like, all right.
Or just get annoyed with it.
They get annoyed with it. And I don't in this scenario. I think there's something special about me personally. I just love hearing that when Kidd talks about it in the sense of like, I was here, like not just say, hey, I've won a title before and now I can speak on how to win a ring in the game of basketball. It is, I won my ring here. Like I won it here in this organization wearing this jersey. And I think there is something powerful of when Kidd says that line of, hey, the last time we won a championship here, we made stops. And it's like, he was part of that. He was making those stops. We do finals flashbacks every single summer, it feels like. And it's like we see Jason Kidd at the 35, 36, 38, in his late 30s there, making defensive stops in the finals. And it's like he knows what it takes. So I think there is something really cool and really powerful about him talking about that championship team and how they won it by defense, because he answered multiple questions on Friday at that presser about defense. And we joke, take the drink that, hey, defense again going into training camp. Like we've heard it before, but he's really, really preaching that defense is going to be their focus.
Yeah, if you couldn't hear me on the podcast, I was taking a very big drink and then trying to just empty out the glass, because every single year we hear this. Well, we're going to focus on defense again going into this training camp. And honestly, I think most teams do that, right? I think most teams focus on defense because offense just comes to a lot of these guys. And now, I mean, with the James Harden-centric offense and Luka is one of them, you can just put the ball in a guy's hands and they'll be okay, right? They don't have to run any plays really until they get into certain situations. But yeah, defense has to be, and it has to be a parent, has to be a focus. But yeah, I thought that was a real interesting quote about focusing on defense. And the question was asked later. You referenced that. How would you tell these guys how they can win a championship, or what can you tell these guys about? And he mentioned defense again there, and that's how they won. That's how he knows. That's how he knows to get to the top. That's how he knows that team in 2011 made it against a super team that was put together, and the Mavericks are going to be against some of those teams, possibly the Nets, but definitely the Lakers would be in their path, and some other teams would be in their path, and you got to get stops against teams like that.
And what's the difference this year between previous years? Like, there's a difference between hearing Rick Carlisle say every single year, hey, we're going to focus on defense, defense. Like, okay, same thing over and over. But now it's a whole new coaching staff, whole new Jason Kidd, whole new front office
scheme.
Yeah, whole new scheme. So like a lot of the same faces. So now we know if they hop in, this season, the start of the season, and they're still bad defensively. It's like, okay, there's some drastic changes that needs to happen roster wise. But what if the change that needed to happen was, coaching and the scheme and all of that? So we'll see how it plays out.
That'll be really interesting. Some other good stuff, some great stuff, I thought, from Reggie Bullock, from Tim Hardaway Jr. We'll get into that quickly coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Rock Auto. RockAuto.com is the best place to get your auto parts for your car. Why would you want to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? Don't get your parts at a car dealership. You pay too much. Rock Auto is a family business serving it to do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Their prices are always reliably low for every single customer. They have everything you could possibly need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet for your car. You're like, how do I fit these carpets into my car? There's always this configuration. There's like a lump here, and then there's like a seat here and something else. And then some of them have these hooks that you have to hook specifically into this thing. Rock Auto has those for you. Go check out your car. Their catalog is remarkably easy to navigate. You just click your car, the year, the make, the model, all that kind of stuff, and you get down to everything available for your car or truck. So go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box. They know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, Isaac Harris. So we've talked about defense. We talked about Jason Kidd. Now let's get into the introduction to some of these players. Let's get the introduction to Reggie Bullock. I was interested to hear how Reggie decided to join the Mavericks. I always think that's really interesting to see how a guy made that choice. And so here's Reggie Bullock telling everybody basically how he differentiated between some of his other options and the Dallas Mavericks.
Well, from when I played against the Mavericks last year, I mean, I like the way that they competed as a team. They got great players. So it was an easy no-brainer for me. Being with the Knicks last year, I mean, we made it to the playoffs, but I seen this as a team that, that's taking that next step to be in the postseason. So I felt like the skill set that I have was easy for me to be able to make this move, to be able to come down here and be around a great organization and in a great city, around great fans, and just bring my game here.
Are we sure Reggie knows the Mavs made the playoffs?
Hold on, dude. Should we go back on that one?
I'm just wondering. It just
I was confused by the wording as well of that one.
The way he worded it was like, "Hey, I made the playoffs with the Knicks, but I see this team in Dallas here as like a team that's capable of making the playoffs." And it's like,
the Mavericks won more games in the playoffs than the Knicks did against a way better team than the Knicks did.
But all jokes aside,
when you make the playoffs in New York, though, it's almost like nothing else exists.
That's
right?
true.
So you just drown it all out. So A+ for Reggie Bullock and his ability to drown out all the other noise and literally anything else.
No, I love having Reggie in Dallas, man. I think he's going to be a great fit. And just to hear about him saying, no brainer. He talked about, I don't think we're playing any other sound clips from him on today's pod, but he talked about
the one about how his game fits.
Yeah, well, like matching up with Luka, I think Coop asked him about just him fitting with Luka and playing against him or playing with him now versus playing against him, and there's other matchups against each other, over the past few years. So, I think he's going to fit perfect here.
He is absolutely going to fit, and this was one you just alluded to. The question asked how he's going to fit with Luka and how Luka's game and him and all that. So this is from Reggie Bullock, but also Sterling Brown gets in there, and Sterling Brown gives an answer that you're going to want to hear. So definitely listen for Sterling Brown's answer to this about how to play with Luka.
Respect to him. I mean, he's a great player. I mean, everything he do on the court, from shooting the ball to his go-to moves to the way he get other people involved. I mean, he's a great player. I'm glad to say that he's a teammate of mine now, that I don't have to guard him for a full game. But we had some great battles when we played against each other when I came down here. But he's a competitive player, and it's kind of crazy to actually see that from a guy that's from overseas. But he's definitely competitive, and he loved the game, and he got a lot of respect for it. So I'm glad to call him a teammate now.
Do we have to pause? Do we have to pause for a second and talk about that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, similar to what Reggie said. I mean, he, is good all around, and it was definitely some battles out there. But I love to go in the battle with him now. And he definitely, compliment my game. He gonna be able to find me, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be exciting.
Confidence. My name is Sterling Brown. You gotta love when a guy is in his introductory press conference, which, by the way, is an introductory press conference for him. So it is all about him. That says, "I know that Luka will compliment my game in this way." Gotta love it. I love that quote.
No, it's good. We laugh about it and joke about it, but Sterling's gonna fit great here too,
for sure.
And he had a quote, one of my favorite quotes of the day, when he said, he thinks about he's obviously played at SMU, so he's familiar with Dallas, and all he's thinking about is a title, and not just a title, but bringing a title back to the city. And I love that. I love his demeanor when he said that. Like, there's a difference between reading that quote and then watching him say that quote. Like, he looked like he would have went and just ran laps. He was so let's just go do this right now. He's ready to get to work. And so I love the Sterling Brown edition.
Tim Hardaway Jr. had some good answers as well. We'll get to those tomorrow. I really want to spend some time talking about it. He had a really good quote about how he feels like he belongs in Dallas. And then he also had a quote from the question that I asked about Kristaps Porzingis and what he needs to do this offseason. I love those quotes. I want to spend some more time on those, so we're going to do those tomorrow. But a couple other notes from the presser, just talk about us being there and stuff that you can't see just on the screen. I thought it was interesting, by the way. This is not something you can only see, but I thought it was interesting that Nico made a point to talk about each and every player on the on the dais there. They made sure to speak about each one of them and not just say oh, this is a guy that's blah blah blah. He said Moses Brown came in here and he has just improved so much from just the little time I've seen him. He talked about Sterling Brown, how he's been in the gym every single day working. Reggie Bullock, he mentioned him, and then Tim Hardaway Jr. He went down the line and gave a little bit about each player. I really like that touch. Just about, something individual and personal for each one of those players. And I like that from Nico.
Yeah, that was super nice. I think an overwhelming thing you hear about Nico is just how nice of a dude he is. We got a chance to talk to a couple of them, after the presser, kind of off the record stuff. This is the first time I got to meet Nico Harrison, shake his hand, talk to him. And
you were wearing the same shoes.
Hey, we talked about each other's shoes, by the way, too. And that had some conversations with Jason Kidd, it's sitting in a little media scrum there, taking some.
We'll talk about those later for sure.
Some questions after the press conference. And, but yeah, this is the last time we're going to get to talk to these guys, before training camp. And what you said about Nico, I thought that was really cool. He made a point to go down the line. He also said that this idea of this whole introductory press conference was Michael Finley's. And he made that point at the beginning that, Finley wanted to have this. And, because I think some people even, I tweeted out, a lot of us tweeted out pictures of them holding up their jerseys afterwards. And, different people quote tweeting a tweet and saying, man, this is where we're at. This is the Mavs offseason. Wow, here we are. No, I think there is somebody tweeted at me and said, hey, if you've seen this picture before free agency started, how would you have felt about this picture? And I think it's very valid. I'll call myself out on that, saying, yeah, I'm not going to lie. If I saw that before, I'd be like, okay, well, it didn't go as planned, but it's not like a disaster either. It's still, I still feel the same way. It's like, this wasn't a home run offseason. This wasn't, I wouldn't say even a triple, offseason. If we're keeping the baseball analogy, this is like a single, like they didn't overpay for somebody. They didn't any of that. Like they got some quality guys who's going to fit.
To continue with the baseball analogy, let's hope it's like a sacrifice bunt, right? Like a sacrifice bunt or a pop-up, where they had all this cap space and then they take a big swing and then they miss, but it makes something else work down the line where what if KP comes back and he's in all-star form this year? Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, that's where our runner is now scoring from third after we hit this pop-up. Because if they had gotten another big fish, then maybe it pushes KP down to third in line and then all of a sudden he doesn't come back to be the player that he can be.
Yeah, well,
can we continue with the baseball thing?
I still think it's a single just because, like, you brought back Tim. Like, you could have lost Tim. Like, Tim could have took the $88 million from New Orleans, and we're sitting there with an introductory presser with just Bullock and Sterling Brown and Moses, So not only did they bring Tim back, but they added a guy in Reggie Bullock who's probably going to be closing some games some nights.
Great,
He's going to play in the playoffs and stuff too. So once again, it's not the home run of the offseason that we wanted, but they got better. And these guys, especially Bullock and especially Tim, they're going to be part of the main rotation. And let's just see what happens to Sterling Brown. Is Moses Brown on the roster past October 1st? We don't know those questions, or the answers to those questions. But yeah,
There you go. Guys, we will be back all week with great stuff. We're going to have a live mailbag probably Wednesday. We really loved the one that we did last time. And so we will be accepting life advice questions, of course, and of course, Mavericks questions and all that. So, guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.